Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about holidays in fantasy fiction. So, as always, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So, earlier this week, my coworkers and I were kind of talking about how we've basically run out of holidays. Like, apart from like Easter coming up and like St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo, days that we don't typically get off of work, we were just kind of lamenting on the fact that we've run out of holidays. So, we don't have any, easily foreseeable vacation time coming up, apart from using our vacation time and stuff. So, we're just kind of lamenting about it. And then it kind of got me thinking. Having holidays and stuff like that are a great way essentially to demarcate different parts of the year because we clearly use them to, well, apart from thinking of like different quarters in the fiscal year for the company as a whole and stuff, we tend to use holidays as markers and stuff, which is common, what I imagine is common for pretty much most anyone. Like we always associate Christmas and Halloween and Thanksgiving and stuff with the end of the year. It's always, we're getting closer to New Year's. Which those are probably imperfect examples because all of those are direct holidays relating to the fact that the year ends. So you literally wouldn't have those holidays without marking the fact that it's that time of the year. But better example is like Memorial Day and Labor Day. Most people see those holidays as like the beginning and end of summer, which I do also. And a lot of people that I know also will consider something like St. Patrick's Day to be the official kickoff of spring. And I know some people who see Groundhog's Day as like the tail end of winter, like that's like the last third of winter you're entering or something like that. So essentially, pretty much any holiday to multiple people in multiple different cultures and stuff all over the world are used as ways to demarcate the year, to slice it up, and of course, all of the holidays have major cultural significance in various ways, depending on which country celebrate them, and in comparison to countries that don't, or how a country celebrates one holiday in comparison to how another country, does the same holiday. Like in some of the world, Christmas is not quite. I mean, it's the same, but they don't have like Santa Claus. They have like I can't remember what her name is, but I think in like Germany, it's a female figure who is the Christmas avatar character who brings the gifts and well wishes and that kind of thing. And like there's just different methodologies and ways in which we can celebrate different holidays all over the world, which kind of gives you a little insight into the culture and the way that they express themselves and the way that kind of stuff works. So naturally, a holiday makes sense as a part of world building. It is a huge encompassing part of the world in this kind of subtle way, because to me holidays of course gives you a glimpse of the culture, it gives you an understanding of the region that you're in, and also it kind of demarcates where you are on the calendar. So it gives you time and spatial reasoning in world building in a lot of ways that a lot of fantasy books, especially adult fantasy, just kind of doesn't do. There are some stories with holidays and they are used in that sort of way, but in my experience and my reading, it's very rare. There are very few stories that have explicit holidays. And I did some research today to try to figure out some other adult fantasy series that have holidays. And specifically, I was hoping to find ones that aren't just, copies of our holidays. But sadly, that was the majority of what I could find. So, a couple examples I want to kind of bring up here. So, in Discworld, there is Hog's Watch, if I'm not mistaken. There is one of the books, I think is like Hog's. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not a Discworld reader. Maybe it'll be on the list at some point. But in my research, I found out I think one of the worlds, or I don't know this. I'm so ignorant about Discworld and Terry Pratchett in general. But I know that there is a holiday called Hog's Watch, which is essentially a Christmas allegory. It's a winter solstice holiday. So they can kind of use that holiday and that story to demark this time of the year. And if there's only a certain culture that celebrates it, it pretty much gives you spatial and time reasoning in a shorthand kind of way. So that's interesting. And then stories like Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings essentially was Tolkien's, like, I mean, he wanted to basically create a mythology for Europe. So it kind of makes sense that there's just basically a different version of Christmas. They have like Yule, and I think it's spelled differently though, but it's essentially, what we understand as a winter solstice holiday, Christmas, Hanukkah, like those kind of things. So it's very familiar, but it is used. But it's also in a world that is, while very different than our world, it still has a lot of elements that are contemporaneous with our world. Because there are other stories that I noticed, like Superpowers. The Superpowers series is essentially just Earth. It is contemporary Earth, but 20% of the planet has superpowers. So they have Halloween, Christmas, all the stuff. And it's all based around a college situation. So using college semesters and stuff, you run into these holidays a lot. So in this story, Drew Hayes definitely uses the holidays to demarcate where we are in the school year and where we are in the year in general, because the progression of their time in school is a big part of the story itself. Similar to Harry Potter. Harry Potter, reputation notwithstanding about the creator or whatever, but Harry Potter is also in a very contemporary world. So there is classic Christmas and other holidays and things, even though they're in the magical world. They only seem to really celebrate Christmas. There doesn't seem to be any other greater holidays, or I don't know if that's just like a British thing, because I don't know how many of American holidays directly translates to the UK. But either way, so that one exists, and then there are some other stories that like I haven't read that I know like nothing about. There is Chronicles of the Necromancer. This story has a holiday called Haunts. It has like it's like celebration of the fallen, but it's like known as haunts, which is, I mean, really it's just Halloween, but it seems to be more akin to like the Mesoamerican kind of Hispanic kind of Halloween, like Day of the Dead, more what All Souls Day used to be, more a proper recognition of those who have gone before us and stuff, and like paying reverence to the spirits of the past and like those who passed on and stuff. So it's kind of Halloween, but it's less American Halloween and more other, well, I guess it's North American Halloween, but it's more Mexican, kind of Central American kind of in flavor, at least from the little bit that I read. I haven't read the story, so I don't know in context, but it does kind of give me an idea of the type of world that this probably is, because it has a holiday that is kind of contemporaneous with a holiday that I'm familiar with, which is also one of my favorite holidays. um, and there is another one called The Festival of Flies, which is in the Malazan series. I don't know which book from the Malazan. I mean, I guess this whole series takes place on the same planet, so the Malazan series has a holiday called Festival of Flies. I didn't really look into it too deep to know what it is, because I am going to start the Malazan series and I don't want to like accidentally spoil anything for myself. So I just kind of was looking on Reddit and looking through a couple different ideas that other people had. So that's one that I found too. But in my research, though, I really couldn't find too many other examples. One of my friends from work, though, her sister is a big fantasy reader and stuff, but she tends to read YA and like all ages fantasy and like anime and manga and like a lot of that other kind of stuff that's not precisely adult fantasy literature. But I kind of noticed the pattern. She was able to come up with a lot more in-world holidays for a lot of those other stories that were YA or that started off as a manga and then became a novelization or something like that. So I think it's, I mean, this is an assumption, honestly, on my part, but I kind of think having holidays or having a setting that's far more contemporaneous to regular, like, real world is probably more common in YA or young adult, because it doesn't allow or it doesn't require such this dramatic leap of faith or like kind of learning curve in the way like Stormlight Archive does. If you're not prepared for a dense fantasy, the beginning of Stormlight Archive might turn you off. So I wonder if that might be one of the reasons for something like that. But I don't know. I don't have any real explanation for it, but I would really love to know your all opinions. What are some holidays that exist in adult fantasy that you've come across, and how do you feel about holidays in general? How do they, like, basically break up the year for you? How do you think it works in terms of world building along with character development? What are some interesting ways that you think it could be used? Let me know about that in the comments down below. So, before I end the video, though, I did kind of want to do this little thought experiment thing. On Roshar and Stormlight Archive, we don't seem to have any holidays, unless Brandon just hasn't mentioned them, or like maybe they were so kind of offhandedly mentioned that I missed. I mean, granted, I've read those four books a number of times, so if I just completely overlooked it, I'll be kind of ready to slap myself because of my clear lack of attention. But assuming I am totally correct and Brandon hasn't added any holidays to Roshar, I would like to, just basis on a thought experiment on how I would develop a holiday, I would like to suggest a holiday for Roshar. So, this holiday would be both culturally significant all over the planet, and it would be religiously significant. It would essentially be the equivalent to their Christmas. I would think of it as, even though I think logically a lot of us probably would assume that would happen around the weeping, because the weeping is the point in the year that they mark the year. So the weeping is a regular weather phenomenon that happens. That's just like light rain that happens for like a couple weeks or so, and it just happens that way once a year. So that's basically their New Year's. So I would probably roll that in with something like that because it's an end of the year thing. But no, I would think that the Vorn religion would have eventually canonized. Well, I guess because they're heralds, that's better than saints, so they don't need to be canonized. But I could totally see that the date of what was the final desolation, the one that they thought was the last one, I could have totally seen that becoming a festival holiday, a feast day, a celebration day, almost an equivalent of Christmas in a way. So, granted, we don't know much about the Rosharan calendar. We just kind of got 10 days of I think there's like 10 days in the week, 10 months out of the year. And just, I have no idea which, I don't know the months and I don't know the days of the week. They are mentioned occasionally, but not all of them. So probably within context they could be figured out, but I don't have it figured out. But so I don't know exactly when that would be. But in my head, it falls somewhere in spring. So I think it would be really interesting to have a holiday that is like Desolation Day or the Final Desolation or Victory Day or something, since the perception is that they won the Final Desolation and everything. So having it be like Victory Day and have it be like a huge celebration of life and winning and defeating of the Void Bringers and stuff and having festival foods and all this stuff. How interesting would that be in the context of Stormlight Archive? Granted, if it's happening during the current desolation, that would be interesting too, though, because you would think that when this new desolation started, it would kind of mess up the way people view that holiday and probably have religious ramifications greater than the ones that are happening currently in the story. So I think it would be really fascinating to see what something like that would do to a world like this if it was injected or if it had already existed, especially with the advent of the retcon to their own history. That would be a really interesting shakeup to see how not only has it changed the country and the political landscape, but it has literally shaken the foundations of their very culture. That would be really fun to explore. So my general idea is the idea of a holiday celebrating that last desolation when the heralds left and when they claimed they won and all that stuff. It would be called Victory Day, and it would be like the greatest holiday on both the continent and on the planet, and it would be a very big Vorn holiday. So anyone that's not Vorn probably doesn't care too much about it, but all the Vorn kingdoms like celebrate it, as big as Christmas or something. And then when this final desolation or this new one started to happen, it would then cause major conflicts within the church, within the culture, within cities, and within just general people. Like, I would really like something like that. Granted, I'm not saying I like it to the point of Brandon like rewriting or anything like that, but I think that's just kind of one of the cool things that if it was added in there, it could have given the story a different little flavor to it. Let me know in the comments down below if you can think of any other holidays that would like fit in Mistborn, or actually, does Warbreaker have holidays? I would think they did, based on the way they kind of it makes me think I need a reread of Warbreaker, because part of me feels like that culture totally would have holidays. So I feel like there may have been some sort of offhand mention, but I can't think of anything offhand. If you can, of course, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know if any other holidays that exist already in a fantasy series, or one that you think would slide right in perfectly to a fantasy series. Let's go ahead and talk about that in the comments down below. So, as always, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll talk to y'all next time. Peace.